Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode. And we have Julen here with us, Finding Your Fiji. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited for this conversation.
So why don't you share with everyone some of your background?
Sure. So I am a Feng Shui expert. I've been studying and practicing on my own for quite a number of years, 15 years or more. And then I actually got certified 4 years ago. So I have a certification that took quite some time to get and just know a lot about that. I'm also a certified angel card reader and a certified love activist. So that's something else that I've added in and do coaching as well. I come from Minnesota and I actually moved from Minnesota to Maui a year and a half ago. So that's a big part of my story as well and a part of my happiness journey.
Love Hawaii. We've been there. I've been there twice. One to the Big Island, one to Maui, and it's a beautiful place. The beaches are beautiful.
It's magical. It is definitely magical. Yeah. So, and I just personally, I have two boys that are almost 22 now and 25. All my family basically is back in Minnesota still. So moved here sight unseen, and it's been an amazing journey.
So something that so as you know, the podcast is on the idea of happiness and kind of background and faith. What made you go from, it seems like your background, you went to a private Catholic school, is that correct?
I
So you
did,
kind
yeah.
of had a more Christian background, if you would say. What
Yeah.
made you kind of shift? Because some of the ideas, it seems, of like the angel, the readings and stuff, that's not kind of that on that side of the perspective, right? What made you shift into that area?
Yeah, that's interesting. So to me, it's all connected, right? Since I was a little girl and my mom's super religious, she always loved having little angel figurines all over her house. And I just always felt a really strong connection with angels. I actually have a memory when I was little and I was seeing them on the altar at church actually, and would be talking to them, and of course then no one else could see them, so that was just when other people don't believe you, you kind of stop believing yourself. So but to me it's all very, very connected. So regardless of what religion anyone is associated with, there's a higher power. Like I think most people, and I wouldn't say everyone because there are some atheists, right? But most people believe there's a higher power, and this is and a higher version of ourself too that knows the right thing to do and is very connected to spirit, to God, to source, whatever people want to term that as. And so to me, it's very connected. For me, I just felt more of a shift in a more personal relationship with the divine, and rather than having to go through a church, right? So I feel like I'm talking to the divine, to God, the angels all the time. And so that's sort of the shift for me. And Maui is a magical place for that. Like like the energy here is just, it's so much easier to connect. I feel like a lot easier to really just get in touch with that spiritual side of yourself.
It's interesting because a lot of people don't have an issue with a higher power or God. They have an issue with religion, right? It's
Yes.
usually
Yeah.
because it's like, okay, I was raised a certain way, and I want to understand. I've had maybe encounters of the spiritual world, right?
Hmm.
And I want to experience that more, but what I'm hearing, what I'm experiencing is not necessarily what is being taught, And so a lot of people
Yes.
have
Yeah.
issues with that aspect. So that was just something interesting. I'm always curious of why. I have friends that, they've, left a religion that they've been a part of for so many years. They grew up in it, And now
Yes.
it's almost like they don't want any part of it. And it's kind of interesting because, you know, my question is always why. You know, I'm always trying to figure out what is that that's turning them off from the religion. And I know it's not necessarily turning off to God or a higher power. So I'm always curious on the faith aspect of people in general, of why they make that decision. And a lot of times it's kind of a coincidence. It seems that there's a lot of like depression too, like religion, or maybe they're not as close to seeking a higher power or something, or so that's kind of the areas that I'm exploring personally and asking questions in this podcast to kind of identify those things.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you're right. I mean, there's definitely a lot more depression in general, I feel like, in the population. I feel like hearing about a lot more suicides, a lot of people. And to me, that's a disconnection from divine, right? Whenever you get in a space of feeling so badly, it's a disconnection, right? Where you're not feeling connected. And people do often then leave, you know, their religion or spirituality behind when they're feeling disconnected. It's like, they don't have that connection. For me, you know, one of the things is like some of the religions are very exclusive, like, you know, need to be part of this religion or you're not going to make it through, right? And to me, I feel like everyone, we're all connected, we're all one. And so that for me sometimes is a disconnect with the religious aspect of things. And I wouldn't say all faiths or all religions, obviously, but there are definitely some that are like, you know, you need to be Catholic or you need to be this to be, you know, saved, quote unquote, saved. And I feel that we're all super connected and we're all worthy, right?
So how would you, a lot of it seems like your path was also kind of the seeking aspect, right?
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
How have you, let's get a little bit into the mindset. So what do people get so wrong about the talk that they have in their own mind, or the things, there's a biblical philosophy that, you know, that says that, you know, love others as you love yourself. Right. So, but if you don't love yourself,
right,
you can't really love others, I think, in
exactly. Yeah.
So what do people in this day, it seems like so much we have the mindset issues that people have. Can you speak a little bit more about what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question, because it really is so important for us to focus on ourselves first before we try to do things out in the world and even with our families, because and the way I describe it a lot of times to my clients is the higher vibration you're at, the better you feel, the more you give other people access to that vibration. So it's not selfish at all. It's actually the least selfish thing that you can do to take care of your own energy, your own vibration, as I like to call it. And that would include like creating things in your life that help you feel good and help you bring more positive thoughts. So for me, like today, I've just the last couple of days, I've been feeling a little bit like I just have a lot going on. And so for me, I felt guided to go to the ocean and just, you know, float in the ocean, and just because to me, that's like such a connection, and it helps clear my energy field. So physically, the salt water helps clear your energy field also. But then to me, it's just like this connection of floating with the divine, right? Because it's like so, such a powerful aspect. So those types of things, the self-care things that I do, help me feel better, which then in turn leads to more positive thoughts. I think what sometimes people do is they end up beating themselves up for the thoughts that they have. We all have negative thoughts. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? We're human. That's part of the human experience, is we have negative thoughts, or quote unquote negative thoughts sometimes, right? But it's, what do you do with that? Are you going to follow that down a rabbit hole? Or are you going to try to shift that and like, oh, that's not what I want. What is it that I do want? And how can I reach to the next little bit that I do want, or get a little bit closer, or even just go to gratitude about something, anything. I have a bed to sleep in, right? I have a roof over my head. I'm often grateful for ceiling fans, right? Or, cars, or just, things that we often take for granted, that I think can help people shift their mindset.
That's interesting, because there is aspects of what you said about gratitude. We take, I don't know if you know my story, but I traveled and lived in South America for 4 years, and I got to experience different communities and different types of people. And there were people in what we would consider in the U.S. living in like tent type cities, right? And they were they were content, and they had they had joy.
Yes.
Right? And then there was people that are completely not content. So whatever your your status, or the part of the journey that you're in, I think it matters that you have that mindset of gratitude, because if you're unhappy constantly, and that's something that I'm exploring, this idea of this happiness, and try to find it, which I think there's joy and there's happiness, which are two different aspects, right? Happiness is, to me, my definition is more short term.
Yeah.
It's something that's a Band-Aid over for that period of time. Versus joy is something that's lasting. What could you kind of input on your definition that you kind of found in happiness, and finding your happiness in life? Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah. So for me, it's really about following what you're guided to do, which helps bring you into the flow, right? So people talk about this all the time. Oh, I'm just in the flow. Like, things are going really well in my life. I'm in the flow. Like, this good thing happened, this good thing happened, this good thing happened. And I firmly believe that it's when you follow that divine guidance that you get in the flow. So for me, just even like moving to Maui. So I kept getting signs. That I was meant to move to Maui, right? And I finally asked my angels and guides and said, if I'm going to do this, this is a big deal. Like, I got to sell my house and everything, move away from everything I know. And I need like a in your face kind of sign, right? So I asked for a sign. And I think that's important for people to realize, that you can ask for signs, right? And I wasn't specific about what the sign needed to be. Some people will say, oh, I want to, show me a bluebird if I'm meant to do this or whatever. I don't do that. My spiritual team of angels and guides is super creative. And so I just let them bring in whatever they do. And so the very next day, actually, I got a box in the mail. I was part of a Secret Santa sister exchange. So it came from someone that I did not know. I still, to this day, don't know who sent it to me. And the gifts were kind of in the bottom, and they had cushioned them with some bags. And the first bag that I pulled out, one of these little shot handle bags, said Maui Divers Jewelry on it. I'm like, okay, I still get chills when I share the story, because I'm like, there was my sign, and that's all I needed to help boost my faith, right? And I had that sign. I was like, okay, I'm in. I'm in. I'm going to follow and I'm going to do what I'm guided to do. So, guided to sell my house, guided to, different people that just lined up as to where I was going to live and all of that. So to me, that's sort of the basis of happiness, is having faith and following the guidance that's coming through. And then in the midst of it, enjoying it all. So really enjoying every moment, everything that's happening. Even if you're like, not feeling good or have a cold or something like that, right? Like, just be in it. Just love where you're at, right? And that, I feel like, expands the amount of joy and happiness that you can experience.
The idea of enjoying where you're at in the journey,
yes,
that's been always a challenge for me, because I grew up in this idea of, when you're going on vacation, get to your destination and then enjoy your vacation.
Right. And so many people do that with retirement too, right? Oh, I'll wait till I retire to do those things. And that was the other piece of moving to Maui. I've always wanted to live in Hawaii when I retired, but I'm like, I don't really feel like I'm going to retire. I really love what I do. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy my work in the world. And so why not move now? Why not enjoy life now rather than putting it off, right?
That's awesome. What could you talk a little bit about? I've never dove into it, but this idea of Feng Shui, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting, because primarily it seems that in the Asian community, when they buy a house, it has to be facing the right direction. It has to have 8s in the zip code. They'll pay more for it. Or certain types, communities, has to be facing this way. It has to have this, there's like different things. Why should people, where does this idea come from, and why does it help, I guess, with happiness and mindset, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah. So I love to couch this in a way that brings everything together. So we believe that you have 3 types of luck. So one is your heaven luck, which to me I read as like when you were born, your connection with the divine, your connection with spirit, God. So that's your heaven luck. And then we have earth luck, which is our environment. So our environment and the things around us do impact us. Everything has energy. And this has been scientifically proven, right? That there's an energy to everything. And so the energy of the things in your space, in your physical space itself, do impact you. So that's a second piece of things. And then the third piece of things is your human luck, which we call human luck, which is the actions that you take. So the things that you do, if you want to term that as free will or whatever you want to say around that, but that's the actions that you take. So when you look at it in the scheme of like heaven, earth, and humanity, it's 1/3 of what impacts what's happening in our life. So I've seen it time and time again where I can actually go into somebody's home and not even know them and tell them what's going on in their life, because I see it reflected in their space. And so if we shift things in our space, just like if you shift your physiology, right? If I stand up straight and put a smile on my face, it helps me feel better, right? So if you shift things in your space, it actually helps raise the energy of this space, which supports you in attracting the things that you want in your life. So it's really, to me, it's a supportive factor, is what I see it as.
Now, how much of the philosophies and the ideas of it has to do with believing in it? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm. So like maybe a physician that helps somebody out and they're constantly getting sick, right? They can't get better.
Right.
But the moment they like say, no, I am better and I'm going to get better, they make that mind switch, then the doctor is able to actually help. How much of the idea of Feng Shui is actually belie- being in your mind. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
And then seeing maybe small wins in your life because you have beliefs and you see those small wins in your life and you're like, oh, that's what attracted. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I do.
Dive into certain philosophies or ideas more so because of the mindset.
Yeah, and actually the mindset piece of things is a really crucial part of Feng Shui. We refer to it as intention. What is your intention? What is it that you want? And so it really is about being super clear about what is it that you want. So for some people, for instance, if they have a back door in the wealth part of their home, they can have money coming in the front door, but it's going right out the back just as fast. When they set the intention by placing a bell on the door or by hanging a wind chime outside the back of that door in wealth, they're setting the intention to call their money back in and to retain more of their money. So it's really working with the mind along with the physical object. And the other piece about the physical object is that it's a reminder. So it's a physical thing that every time they see that, oh yeah, I'm calling the money back in, right? It's a way to remind the mind of what it is, what the intention is as well. And there's a lot of Feng Shui adjustments that we do that nobody ever sees. Like we'll tuck them behind a mirror, that type of thing. Or, just it's something that they write. They might write their intention on a certain color piece of paper and put it in a spot. And again, but it's that essence of like, what is it that you are wanting to attract? What is the intention? And things shift, and they shift very fast when you combine the intention with actually taking an action, right?
What I find interesting is I find a lot of people, and I've done this in my life too, is live life passively, right?
Yes.
So sometimes I think some of these physical attributes is just sometimes a reminder that like,
yes,
stop living passively in our lives. And I think it's a key attribute because a lot of times you could live 5-10 years and just all of a sudden wake up and be, go, what the heck has happened for the last 5-10 years?
Yes. Yeah. And I too also feel like it's about being aware, right, of the environment. So oftentimes I'll go into somebody's home and I'll point something out and they're like, oh my gosh, like that screen door has been broken for 5 years. Like we don't even see it anymore because it's been broken for so long, right? And we get numb to what's happening around us. So that's the other thing that Feng Shui really does, is it helps people become aware of their surroundings and what's happening in their life. And it helps, the other piece of it is it does help shift your mindset in like, what am I bringing into my space? Like, do I really need this? Because that's the other piece of it too, is, we're big on not having a lot of clutter in Feng Shui because it's heavy energy. It's, when your desk is covered with stuff, it's really hard to focus, right? Like it's just a common thing when we start looking at the things around us and start making shifts with intention, then things do shift in our life as well. So yeah, we want to live an active life. And I think that's when you talk about mindset, I think that's one of the things people, one of the mistakes they maybe make is they think if they just say enough mantras or affirmations that things are going to shift. Well, you have to listen to the guidance that you're getting, right? Answered prayers are not going to be just jumped in your lap. You need to listen to what the guidance is that you're getting and actually take action, right? So take the action that you're being guided to take. So it's not, creating a happy life is not a passive thing. You're right about that.
It's also, I think, about shifting, like the idea, like moving to South America was a shift in our environment.
Yes.
And people mistake so much the idea that, well, if I just move into sometimes just moving into another house could be helpful, right?
It does. Yeah. It does sometimes really help.
Just shifting your environment does have a shift also in your mind. And if you don't do anything, you keep up your same routines, it's funny because you'll automatically, I've experienced this, you'll automatically get back into your routines. So it's like multiple components, I think, to what I see. And that seems like some of the philosophies and the ideas is shifting your environment, shifting your mindset.
Yeah. And I even think like doing on a regular basis, do things differently. If you're feeling like you're in a rut or you're feeling stuck, drive a different way to work. Walk the opposite. I used to take my dog for a walk and we'd always walk the same way. And one day I thought, I'm going to walk the other direction. You see different things when you walk the other direction. When you drive it down a different street, you're going to see different things. You're going to notice things differently. So those are little things that you can do also to help shift. And that's why vacations are so great, right? Because you're putting yourself in a new environment and it's fresh and you have more of that childlike wonder about it. Right. And so I think you can do that in your daily life by just, changing what gas station you stop at or, whatever that might be. Right.
So I'm going to ask you two things. One, I'm going to ask you to share your information, where people could find you. And number two, I'm going to ask you for a final thought you want to leave with our listeners. So
sure.
First, how can people find you?
Yes. So I have a website. It's called Finding Your Fiji, FIJI.com. And yes, I've been to Fiji, but I found my Fiji in Maui. So Finding Your Fiji. I'm also on Instagram as Finding Your Fiji and on Facebook. So those are places that they can get more information from me. I'm on YouTube under my name, Kim Julen. So that's a great place. Tons of free videos out there as well.
And we'll also be posting that in the description box. So you just take a look at it there. And final thoughts to leave to the listeners.
Yeah, the final thought would be aware. Like, be an active participant in your life. Be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of the thoughts and ideas that are coming to you. And take action on those thoughts and ideas and see what unfolds.
Thank you, Kim, so much for coming on. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody. And we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter.